All right. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Ashley. I am the navigation manager at the Autism Society. I am here with our friends, Fraser Pico, who is with the NLACL, which is the Newfoundland Labrador Association for Community Living, and our good friend, Deanne. Deanne is a financial advisor and has a lot of expertise in RDSPs. Now, you guys have had a lot of questions around RDSPs, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm a social worker by trade, and numbers are not my friend. So I always divert to the experts when it comes to that. At ASNL, we understand the importance of long-term planning and giving our community what they're asking for in regards to information. So we want to make sure that you guys have all accurate information to make the best decision possible for you. With that being said, Fraser is here and Deanne, we don't endorse a particular financial institution. However, we want to make sure that you all have the information from places that and people who work with this hands-on. So with that being said, I am going to pass this off to Fraser and Deanne.
Okay, thank you very much, Ashley. It's certainly a real pleasure to be here and support the Autism Society of Newfoundland and Labrador. I think the leadership that's been shown by your organization in informing individuals all across our province of the importance of the RDSP program itself. It is a federal program, but I think if each of our organizations combined keep informing all of our constituencies and all of our memberships of the importance of these programs, which really is for the importance of their future when it comes to their financial security and planning how to ensure that if it happens to be mom and dad or a caregiver, that when you're not there or when I'm not there, that you put in place at least the financial plan that will secure their future for whatever it may come as they move forward. So again, thank you very much for this opportunity to be part of it. Just to give your individuals that are here a little bit of background on the Newfoundland and Labrador Association for Community Living. We're a family-based organization assisting people with intellectual disabilities and their families to lead the way in achieving and advancing inclusion in their own lives and in their communities. And by the way, we've been doing that for 65 years. And someone asked me one time, how long have you been around at it, Fraser? And I won't tell the story, but it's been around 55 years. So it's something that's, and I see the changes that have happened because of individuals like yourselves having to work to make our province better for our children and those individuals deserving of that support. Excuse me. So the vision of the Newfoundland and Labrador Association for Community Living is that we will have an inclusive province in which people with an intellectual disability and their families are valued equally and able to participate fully in all aspects of society. It's almost to a point where we can actually take those words out and just simply say that all individuals are valued and equally treated with the right respect within our society. We are moving toward that and seeing that better every day. So I'm very pleased to see the changes over all those years. We believe in equity, inclusion, and independence, and know that everyone deserves the necessary supports in their community to achieve that. So the supports at the community level right across our province is vital. A little bit of background on me. I hate saying what my involvement is sometimes, but I'm a program coordinator with the Newfoundland Association. I'm chair of the Provincial Advisory Council for the Inclusion of Persons with Disabilities in our province. And I will say, keep watching for the accessibility legislation that's going to be talked about over the next year, which will make the laws of our land inclusive, and you will have rights that are written into the laws of our land. So again, that's a very important aspect of that particular council. And those particular individuals who are on the council, there's about 20 people from across our province that have been involved for, if you go collectively, there's hundreds of years of experience. I'm the founding chair of what's called Avalon Employment Incorporated and a recipient of a Lifetime Achievement. I was very proud to get that and very happy to have received it for my work, and I still enjoy doing it and still work with them. I'm a board member with Newfoundland Labrador Housing and past vice president of the Canadian Association for Community Living, which is now called Inclusion Canada. So I won't go on about me anymore. You know who I am. I did retire from a heavy equipment company, and as Ashley said, my role in that was all numbers. So again, I'll speak just briefly about some of the numbers when it relates to the importance of the Registered Disability Savings Plan. In our province, right now, today, we have over 10,000 individuals that are below the age of 49 that have disability tax credits and are eligible to have a registered disability savings plan. Unfortunately, in our province, we are the lowest uptake in all of Canada. We are around 22 to 25% at the most. So in other words, there's almost 7,500 individuals that are right now out in the community in our province that do not have a registered disability savings plan, but are eligible for it and just simply don't know. And again, I'll go back to commending the leadership of the Autism Society in doing this so we can at least inform and engage you in this process. How serious it is sometimes is very important to know also. When an individual turns 49, this program, Canada, the government of Canada doesn't contribute to it any longer. So I'll give an example of how important it is. Dion and I and a couple of other individuals were down in Bayburt and we're holding a seminar such as this. A lady happened to be there at the Legion, said, "Oh, what is this all about?" And we explained it. And she said, "Well, I'd like to get my nephew to come to it. I know he has a disability tax credit. He's cerebral palsy, and I'm sure he'd be interested in hearing about this." He came. He's 48 years old. His name was Chris Burden. And 48 years old. He was going to be turning 49 in December, around the 15th of December. So this was back in October. So needless to say, he wouldn't have been eligible for anything. But the good thing is, because he came to that session, because he took out a registered disability savings plan, he was able to maximize all the benefits that he could get from both the bonds that Dion will talk about and the grants that are available. He will now receive, because of that particular day and the fact that he took out his disability savings plan, he will receive, when he turns 60, up to, or pretty well close to, $60,000 in disability benefits over from the time he's 60 years old until he is no longer, I guess. So the important part here is that he started it very, very late, but still he's going to reap some benefits. So again, hopefully that'll give you an idea how important it is. And if you look at that there were 350 individuals who did reach 49 years old this year, and you take that same number and multiply it by the 60,000 that he's going to receive, people lost and will never see roughly $21 million worth of retirement funds. So again, this is, I'm totally engaged with this process and how important it is to our community, and that the quicker we get those other 7,000 individuals, the better. Now, it's my pleasure right now just to pass this over to Dion, and Dion and both Ashley, both three of us will be talking at certain points. He may butt into me, I might butt into him, but we will try to share this and leave this as open as possible and as relaxed as possible as we flow through. So again, bear with us as we go, because Ashley is in St. John's, I'm in St. John's, Dion is out in Corner Brook. So, but the technology brings us all together as it does everybody that's sitting here. So Dion, I'll pass this over to you.
Just want to interject, as even though, because I will butt in on both of them. I just want to make note, you guys who are on this call, you're automatically muted. If you're having technical problems, don't worry, we are recording it. And I'm pretty good with technology, so I'll make sure you get the information. Also, there will be a point in time where we will ask for questions and commentary, and I will open the chat at that point.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. And with Fraser's sentiments, Ashley, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak this evening, and I commend you and the Autism Society about with their desire to help educate individuals about this important subject, being the Registered Disability Savings Plan and future planning generally. And every circumstance, of course, is different. I've myself and Fraser, we've done some touring around the province over the last couple of years, and one thing for sure is Fraser's passion is not diminished in any way, shape, or form. And in fact, every time I speak to him, he motivates me to keep doing what I'm doing. You'll notice that the hairstyle in the video, if you're seeing the video, and the picture is a little different. I'm operating, I guess, with COVID hair, and that picture was taken when I was a little bit younger. I'm a financial advisor. I've been in that field for 28 years. I'm president of my own firm here in Corner Brook, and we have an office in Labrador, Hancock Financial Solutions. I put a bit of contact information there. And to repeat what Ashley said, Ashley is bringing myself and Fraser in as experts in this area and being able to share information to you or with you. The Autism Society is not endorsing my firm. They recognize that, and I hope they're correct, and that I bring a value in being able to help persons, individuals with disabilities, families, and caregivers, and so on. And this is something that I've been heavily focused on for the last number of years. We'll probably get my ugly picture off the screen there, Fraser, so we'll move ahead. Okay. So for most individuals, obviously financial security is an important piece. And you know, for families and persons with disabilities, it tends to be more challenging than not in many circumstances. And of course, financial security is built about employment and savings. But we're very fortunate that in Canada in 2008, the federal government created a program to help secure financial security for persons with disabilities and to help families save dollars, put forward future dollars for children, for their children who might have a disability or have a disability. And this was called the Registered Disability Savings Plan. Now, in the travels that myself and Fraser have done, one common theme has been why didn't we ever hear about this program? But it's been around since 2008. And unfortunately, and for myriad of reasons, it has not been well presented to the families of persons with disabilities, or to people really recipients of the disability tax credit. I believe the CRA provides some information on an annual basis about that, but it just doesn't resonate for whatever reason. And Fraser brought up some startling numbers. That in Newfoundland, he mentioned 10,000, probably 11,000 or so. Close enough, Fraser. That's excellent. And we're around 23% uptake, which is the lowest in the country. BC being the highest, and Ontario second. In Newfoundland and Labrador, there may be a number of reasons for this happening. It could be everything from distrust of government to financial advisors or financial institutions not introducing it to their clients. And
I'll just, if you don't mind me just interjecting
Please.
there for a moment, because it just brought to my mind a comment that Dion just said. I did receive a phone call from a lady here in St. John's. I was talking about the RDSP program to her, or not to her, but on the what's called the On Target program on VOCM. She found out my name, found out my phone number, and called me, and she asked me about it. And I said, well, do you have a financial advisor? And she said yes to me. And did he reference the RDSP? And well, the comment that came next, and they say in Newfoundland, you could have knocked me over with a feather. The comment was that, well, and this was from a professional advisor, that he did not see any value in the registered disability savings plan. Well, again, you go back to why people don't have them sometimes. And I don't know why. It's because, I guess, in a lot of cases, there's so many people that don't know, one, the value. Two, I'll go back again to Chris down in Bay Vert. His lovely aunt, God bless her and everything else, and she even said it herself, she worked for 35 years in the Bank of Nova Scotia and did not know about the RDSP that her nephew could have had. So again, going back to why people don't get them sometimes, one, didn't know, two, they're afraid that they may lose some of their disability benefits. And I'm going to let Dion talk to that as we go through on the slides. And Dion, by the way, feel free to say, click the next slide, Fraser, so we can, because I'm controlling it here in St. John's and he's out in Corner Brook.
Yeah, no, and you're doing a great job, Fraser. And thank you. And actually, I was in communication with that lady today that you referenced.
Yes.
The financial advisor did, as you said, suggested or said there didn't appear to be much value there. When I did the numbers for this lady, we found about $260,000 of value, which I would suggest is substantive. And I've been on Zoom calls with her and her lawyer, getting her will all straightened up as recent as last week, doing that, and handling her estate and her her will planning, trust, and all those sorts of things, and working very closely with her. But that is an example, and it's a very good example of the lack of knowledge out there. And I want to try to keep this as simple as possible, because I actually believe it's quite simple. I don't think this is as complicated as people want to make it out to be. And I'm working with people every single day, persons with disabilities, families who have a child or children with a disability. And the process isn't complicated. And that's the beautiful thing about this. All that's required is guidance. I consider myself more of a quarterback in this. Yes, we've gone out, and as a firm, we've gone out and we've gained the knowledge that we believe is very important to help people gain access to this wonderful program. We've removed some of the barriers. And one of those barriers was ensuring that we had the knowledge to talk intelligently to people about the subject. So So the RDSP. So yeah, Fraser, if you don't mind, the next slide, please. Okay. It's second to none in the world. Let's put it out there. Minister Flaherty, the finance minister in 2008, he created a powerful savings tool. And it took off immediately well because those who were motivated to do it and participate, that's where the initial uptake was. But it's really, and while there's still uptake in it, it's not at the level, I don't even think at the level that the federal government was thinking it should be, because they're sitting on an awful lot of money that people are not applying for in terms of the bonds and the grants. So we were the first country in the world to offer a program such as this. And it's designed specifically, and this is where it's key different. It's not an RSP where anyone can participate. It's not a TFSA where anyone can participate. It is designed specifically for persons with disabilities. And the last point here on this screen, and which sometimes I think might be an obstacle, because some people wonder, if I'm getting something for free or not having to put in a whole lot, what am I going to lose? Well, we're always advised to be careful of the too good to be true scenarios. And I've used to say that myself, but I can't find the downside with this particular program. So it's okay, too good to be true. So there is no risk of some of the things that might, or people think might be clawed back at the end of the day, because this program, you can receive and have significant funds in an RDSP without risk of losing other supports, income or otherwise, that you might receive, which is substantial, which is an incredible game changer, because even in an RSP, you might get the tax sheltering for a while, but you're going to pay significant tax on the other end. RDSP is really plus all the way through. Now, remember I mentioned there it was specifically for persons with disabilities, and how does the government control that? Well, of course, it's through the vehicle of the disability tax credit. And the disability tax credit is what unlocks the vault to gain access to the government bonds and grants. One must have a valid social insurance number, be a resident of Canada, and be under age 60 when you open an RDSP. Next screen there, Fraser, my friend. All right. So first point is fairly straightforward. An RDSP allows you to save money for the future without paying tax on the earnings. So it's tax sheltered growth. The next screen is the most important screen, because there's a lot of free money, and I'm going to use the word free. I did a radio interview on CBC yesterday morning, and the person giving the interview brought up the word free, and yes, there is free money available, and it's up to $90,000. Now for Chris out in Bayvert, we couldn't get all the 90,000. We got about 22,000 right at the final moment, and we were down to the final days and hours being able to get that for him. Another week or two later, and it just would not have happened. How it is structured is there's a bond component of 20,000, and there's a grant program of another 70,000. For the bonds themselves, there are no contributions necessary. There are some income requirements, which I discuss with our clients, or if anyone has any questions who are listening in, we can certainly provide some information for you. So there's the 20,000 in bonds. We find most people are accessing those. It's paid up to $1,000 a year for a maximum of 20 years. And then there's the $70,000 of grants. So for the bonds, you don't have to make any contributions. For the grants, you do. And it's a very rich program. And many of our clients participate in that. And the grants are paid out on a 3-to-1, 2-to-1, or 1-to-1 basis. So you put in $1, you got the potential of receiving $3 from the federal government. Put in $25 a month, the government puts in $75. There is really nothing richer out there than that program. And one can appreciate how funds and assets can grow very, very quickly to meet objectives. And that's part of my job as well, is to help manage what the expectations are in terms of what what we're hoping to achieve. So the $90,000, and we'll have many clients who will use up that $90,000. And in terms of personal contributions a person can make, it's a maximum of 200,000. We will have certain clients who will maximize those numbers, but we fully recognize that for a lot of our clients, the ability just isn't there, perhaps, to make contributions. And we understand that, and we appreciate that. Those are circumstances whereby financially there are stresses, but we still work with that family to get the bonds that are available. There's a provincial incentive program that is managed by the NLACL, which there's a one-time contribution of $150, which in itself will generate about $450 in grants. So we, regardless of the circumstance of the client, we will take every effort and work with them. So I can't remember what the last one I'm speaking a lot. I tend to do that a bit. But these are some of the benefits that from the RDSP program. And I guess my overall umbrella statement is that there should be anyone 49 and under with access or who has the disability tax credit should open an RDSP. There will be some funding that will be made available in most all circumstances. And you don't want to lose that opportunity. So the RDSP, and I referenced there, I mean, there are some limitations, well, not limitations. There are income categories here. And for grants, the federal government says around, if family income is net income, by the way, is less than 97,000, 98,000, you can get maximum grants. You can get the 3-to-1s, 2-to-1s, and 1-to-1s. It's a very rich program. And again, every family situation is different. So regardless, I mean, from one person to the next, the story is a little different. And so, but we work with the circumstances there. With the bonds, there's income as well, levels that one has to meet. Family, friends, whoever can contribute to these plans. The RDSP is exempt from provincial disability and income assistance benefits. Again, significant and important. And what's really nice is that there are no restrictions on how, in the future, the money is spent. And that's very possible. Now, what I want to do is make it a little bit real here in terms of what some of the numbers would look like. And this is very powerful. And so what I did is we have a person by the name of Susan. We put her at as age 18. She has a high income for 18, but I just put it in there. Let's say Susan had received the tax credit back in 2010. And this is another point I missed there, was that, and Fraser mentioned it in his conversation about Chris, we're able to go back up to 10 years. And this is incredibly powerful. We're able to go back up to 10 years and pick up all the bonds and or grants that were missed. The problem is that each year passes, we lose a year because we can only go back 10 years. So last year we were picking up grants from 2010. This year now, from 2010. Now we can only go back to 2011. So I always work with a little bit of a sense of urgency to say, don't delay. Get a plan opened. Make whether or not it's just the bonds or combined with contributions. Earlier you open it, the more access you have.
And
so
just to follow up what you were just saying, Dion, in relationship to where I know we've been referencing Chris down in Bay Verde, and Chris, by the way, did give us permission,
yes,
joyfully, I might add, to use his name and use that example of a person who, I'm 48 years old. There's no benefit to me to do this, when there truly was. And this example that we're showing here that we're going to move forward on now in a moment, and Dion will talk about the importance of this particular example, is when And a lot of people realize it, that there are individuals, and it's been said to me by individuals, Fraser, at the end of the day, I don't have a cent to invest into an RDSP, so why would I bother to open it? Now, that's a big, huge statement. I have no money to put into my RDSP, so what is the benefit? So I think, Dion, because I know this example here is exactly, if you have no money, you can't afford to put anything in, not 1 cent, and how the Canada bonds actually work, and even the grants that come into play because of the $150 from the Provincial Incentive Program, which is managed by the Newfoundland Association for Community Living. Anybody who just simply goes to the bank and says, I want to open an RDSP, or goes to a financial advisor, I want to open an RDSP, he or she or they have to, yes, go ahead and open it, even though the person has no money to put into it. When that particular document comes to NLACL, we then verify that, yes, that is opened in this person's name, and we then cut a check that goes directly into that bank account or that RDSP, of which I'll let Dion tell you what happens to even that 150. So Dion, go ahead.
Yeah, Fraser, the next screen here, you can go ahead, because I don't know if you should there. I think you can talk about that, Fraser, because this is a screen. Fraser likes his numbers and he loves his graphs. But this is an example of this person, Susan, that we were just chatting about.
Yes.
And Fraser, speak to that. This is where a person has not made any contributions.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
We do have a calculator that we put in the parameters, such as the person's age, when the disability tax credit was received, or they did get obtained from CRA. You put in the data that's pertinent to that particular individual and that particular scenario. And when we did, and I referenced the $150, when that $150 went in, the federal government automatically added 350. Is it 350?
450.
450. Even better. So yeah, it's 3 to 1 exactly. So when you look at those kind of numbers that they put in, and then they backed it up by 10 years, because as we said, Susan received her disability tax credit 10 years previous. They go back and they take then $10,000. So what goes into Susan's fund or RDSP will be the $10,650, I think is the actual number, right off the bat. And then for the next 10 more years, the federal government contributes $1,000 per year, every year. Once you put it into the RDSP, every number that you see here is growth based on a 5% growth scenario. And some people say, well, but I can only get 1.5 or 1 3/4 at the bank. Well, that's not even keeping up with inflation. 5% is very realistic. I could have been optimistic, even made it better. But when you take those numbers, put them into the calculator, you will see that at age 60, she would have 149,000 sitting in that bank, in that RDSP. What she can then get out of it for the rest of her life, from age 60 up to, I think it's right up to around 85 is where it shows it. But an average lifetime disability assistance payment that goes to her every month is, the average amount is $9,000 per month.
Per year, Fraser?
Per year, yes. I wish it was per year, per month.
I do too, yes.
Yeah, but per year. And so if you take that out and put it out and extend that out to the lifetime expectancy, the amount of money this person would receive is over $200,000. And this person did not put a cent into this particular program. So again, please, you know, from a point of view of coming from an older gentleman here, the importance of having that registered plan put in place for yourself, for your family, for your child, or for your friend, cousin, aunt, uncle. I try to say it to everybody. I've stopped people and I feel embarrassed doing in Walmart. If I see a person that I can visually see that the person has a disability, I ask them, do you have an RDSP? And many times, most times, what is that? I haven't heard of it. Well, there's the importance of telling all of your friends about it. And as soon as they can get them, because the quicker you got them, the better for your lifetime. So I'll go on. I'm going to go on to the next slide, Dion, because I know it takes another scenario.
Okay.
Or you go ahead.
Well, back to that slide for 1 second. That's all.
Okay. All right.
I just have to ask the question. I mean, and we all got to think about this, is that would access to $211,000 or $9,000 a year, would that make a difference in a person's life? I think we would all agree. I hope we're all nodding in agreement that that makes a difference in a person's life. And so again, and this is without having made a single penny of personal contributions. I can't reinforce that enough. So that's without. Now the next screen.
And just to add one more thing. And again, this money that's there doesn't go against or can't be recorded against any disability supports you get. And as you know, in my earlier little Who is Fraser, one of my roles is on the board of directors of Newfoundland Labrador Housing. People who apply for the housing benefit that Newfoundland Labrador Housing does provide, this money cannot be used to be calculated against what their actual income is. This is your private money because of reasons or challenges that you may end up facing down the road because of your disability. This is extra money that the federal government, and because you've invested, is sitting there for the use that you want to use it for. That very well could be for your own home. Again, how you use it or certain support that you may need. Again, your options, these are all options, and the importance of planning for the future. I'll move ahead to the next slide. Yep.
Well, the next slide, basically we're saying, what if there was the means existed whereby someone could make some contributions? And I put in examples of $500 a year, which is $40-something a month, $1,000 a year, and $1,500 a year. At $1,500, I think you're looking at $125 a month. So really from $40 to $125. These numbers are staggering, truly staggering, in that at $500 a year to age 49, not beyond. In the account alone, there's 381,000, almost 382,000. And from a perspective of lifetime disability assistance payments, the person, they live to a life expectancy, there's $688,000 that they will draw from that account. Then you have the extreme example of the $1,500. Lifetime disability assistance payments, there's over $1.25 million that person will have drawn to life expectancy to support lifestyle, to be able to purchase the supports they require. It could be home renovations. It could be whatever purpose. It might be the purpose of having a specialized vehicle, a van, or for mobility or for transportation purposes. It could be a vacation. It could be going down to the bowling alley on Friday nights, or going out with friends and doing whatever can be, you know, ever from a social aspect, associating with others. These numbers are staggering. And at the end of the day, a very small amount of these figures, of these net amounts, gross amounts, very small amount of that is what is your own, would be your own contributions. Most of that is growth. And I want to speak for a moment on the 5%. We're finding too often that people who have RDSPs do not have their investments invested properly. Problem we see is that you go to a given financial institution. They'll ask, when you're setting up your RDSP, would you like a high risk, medium risk, low risk? Most all persons say, I want low risk. Well, you get low risk, but you get incredibly low rates of return, oftentimes in terms of GIC vehicles, which are running at probably under 1%. If you're lucky, you can get 1.5 these days. Very, very challenging. That just doesn't work. That just doesn't cut it. You're not, as Fraser indicated, you're not even coming close to beating the rate of inflation. You have to invest these funds properly. And that's part of the future planning. That's part of the discussion. But it's an important part of this discussion because it might be the difference between 688,000 and having half that amount or less than half. And 5% is achievable. We are doing on average better than that with a properly diversified, balanced portfolio. So I won't speak more on that, but the numbers themselves speak for themselves. And it's because in this particular case with Susan, the plan started at age 18. We were able to go back 10 years and pick up money, and look what happens when money is invested with a reasonable rate of return and over time, compounding, tax sheltered. It's beautiful. So, yeah, go ahead, Fraser.
Yeah, just to, we noticed that the $1,500 there is the last figure from an investment point of view on your part or on a person's part. The good part of that, and I think this is the story that has to come out too, where does that 700,000 come from? Well, for each time you put in your $150 or your $1,500 in the year, the federal government will, correct me, Dion, 3,500 or 45? Oh, I got 35. It. There, 35. So automatically your 1,500, and if I added this up right, I think you got yourself $5,000 sitting there.
That's correct.
Right. So your 1,500 every year becomes 5,000, 5,000, right up until you've maxed out, which is at the 90,000 total. But that's how this growth is achieved. It's federal monies that they're putting in. They're up there with millions and billions of dollars because this is a Canadian program. And we're sitting back here in Newfoundland and Labrador, and 75% of our friends, our neighbors, people in our disability community that have not taken out or even know about it. So again, the importance of how those numbers get achieved. You can see it's every time the 500 goes in, it's 3 times that amount the federal government puts in. So, and that goes on every year that you do it. There is no, the plan, Jim Flaherty, the late Jim Flaherty, who was the Minister of Finance back when this was put in place, needs to be commended. There should be a statue put up in Ottawa for the man. That's how good this program is. And again, it's exceptional. Dion, I'll go to the next slide.
Please, sir. Yeah. So, of course, we talked about the lifetime disability assistance payments, and there are rules around those. Okay. But again, what can sometimes sound complex is much less so. And there are rules about the disability assistance payments, whether you take one time or their annual withdrawals that you take. And there are calculations for that. And for that reason, every circumstance is a little bit different. It works out that when I do my math on them, pretty much right across board, Fraser, and you might have seen this as well, that it works out that if you have $200,000, like in the case of Susan, generally the LDAP, lifetime disability assistance payment, works about 4.5% of the total. okay?
Yes.
And that's paid out to life expectancy. So if you were in your head to do the math and say, well, if I could accumulate 5%, 500,000, what will that mean in terms of annual deposits? Well, you take 4.5% of that, which would be about exactly $22,500 a year. Now, again, we're speaking big numbers there, and okay, and I mean, we want to be careful, very careful, and cognizant of the fact that that may not be achievable because of individual circumstances. We understand that, but and just as much as I'm stressing the value of making additional contributions, which if you can, wonderful. But for those who cannot, like our first example with Susan, that $9,000 a year of additional income, and that's having made no contributions, that's going to make a difference. And I want to speak to that. I mean, in my practice, we've doubled the number of RDSPs that we've done year over year. Many of our clients, and we're sensitive to the fact, can't be putting in, and they're just not in the ability to put in the maximum contributions or any at all. But that's not something to be stressed about. I mean, a lot of people say, if I can't make contributions, I don't want, well, I feel there's no value to it. There is value, and we can create value for you. Because if you're a mom and dad out there, big concern you have, and you probably have many, is when we're no longer here, what supports will be in place for a daughter such as Susan? What is it that will be available to her? Now, we'll talk about that in the future planning piece. But being able to even set up a plan and hopefully even achieve a 200,000, 150,000, whatever that is, that's considerable.
There's another big benefit too, just to go back beyond this for one moment, when you were saying, I realize some individuals cannot afford to put it in, but, and this is where I'll put my butt in, but speaking as a father or a grandfather, if I know my son or my daughter or whoever it may very well be who has a disability, and I say, well, I'd like to put in a couple $100 into that particular fund. That $200 automatically, remember, you go back, what the federal government will put in is 3 times that amount. That then will grow again to help you get more monies as you go through. And if you can't afford it, I know because anybody can contribute on your behalf. And that's a very important part to know, because of, family is family. And sometimes we all contribute one way or the other where we can to help our siblings or sons or daughters and so on. So it's vitally important to know that the good part of this particular program, that yes, you can, and other people can contribute to it.
Hi,
all right.
interrupting
Hi.
again.
Go ahead.
As many people who are on this call have heard me talk about, I'm the neurotypical sibling. But so I know a little bit about RDSPs, not a whole lot. I'm learning lots here tonight. But even though multiple people can contribute to the RDSP, there is only one RDSP.
That's
correct.
Clear.
Yeah, a person can have only one RDSP, and even for a third party to contribute, there is a document that has to be signed. But there are no issues with that. We have a lot of circumstances, such as what Fraser said. Grandfather, $100, deposit $100. That's a $400 gift. That's substantial. So you're absolutely right, Ashley. Only one RDSP per social insurance number.
Okay. Should I go to the next slide?
Yeah, let's keep on going here. All right. So this is the part where, sometimes people get, and I used the phrase a little bit later, get lost in the weeds. About the future planning, wills, estates, and trusts. Wow, is that ever a loaded phrase? All right. And only 30% of Canadians have wills. 70% of our population, no wills or really technically no estate planning in place. Unfortunately, it's probably a little worse so in the case of persons with disabilities or in situations where there are families who have a child with a disability. And, you know, as a parent, you work hard. If you have a child with a disability, you work hard. There are obviously obvious challenges, life challenges, financial challenges around that. And we all know you work hard. And I mean, Fraser, you know, Mr. Ray McIsaac out in Kippens, and he has 2 adult children, and, you know, he devotes his life to those children. And actually does great work with the Newfoundland Labrador Association of Community Living as well. But it's a full-time job, isn't it? I mean, for families, and we certainly appreciate that. But as I referenced earlier, and part of the reason Minister Flaherty came up with this program was he saw a problem. He saw an aging demographic. Moms and dads getting older, supporting a child, and again, or children. I have many families where there are 1, 2, or 3 persons and children in the family with a disability. And a growing mom and dad's growing older, and with concerns about what happens when they're no longer there to support the child. And of course, and I've provided a list of questions here, they're all questions about all the questions that parents will ask. If you haven't said it out loud, you've thought about it. And these are all important questions, okay? Some you know the answers to, some you don't. But there's one thing you knew for sure, you know, more than anyone else, you know your child. And that is important when it comes to the planning piece, because as a mom and dad, or mom or dad, if you're single parent, you know your child better than anyone. And part of the future planning, and if you want to call it will planning, fancy word, estate planning, is about making sure that what you know gets passed on. And there is a document to do that. We'll chat about it. But these are all questions, and you can run through them. I'm not going to read through them. I understand that this presentation will be made available. And I know it's a general presentation because I make it general because if you want to chat with me one-on-one, we can have that conversation and talk about your specific issues or concerns.
And even beyond on the other side of it, the mom and dad, yes, but sometimes we know there are some caregivers that are very concerned with the individual that they've spent a lifetime caring for, whether it's a foster parent and so on. Again, these are questions that do come up. What's going to happen when I'm no longer there? And how can we, at least in some way, secure the future financially? So
this is about financial.
Yes.
Right, Fraser, this is about financial. And I mean, we're not going to solve all the concerns or problems. No. Okay. No. But when you can fix the financial piece, a lot of the other ones start to fit a little better. Yeah. And if you can advance it to that level, that's wonderful. So, but again, as parents, you know what you want for your child. In the case of Susan, you want happiness. We all want happiness for our children. Friendship, meaning, comfort, security. I think, as any parent, any caregiver, these are the things you wish for everyone, regardless of who they are. So, you know, the fact that you as a mom or dad or caregiver know more than anyone else about the specific circumstances of your child, children, it's a matter of making a plan to ensure that assets, number one, okay, because I mean, we all, to some degree or another, accumulate some assets over our lifetime. It could be a home, it could be bank accounts, it could be investments, whatever it is. And making that plan is really pushing forward in a document what you want, how you want your assets to be dispersed and how you want them managed. Because if you don't do it, the courts will do it for you. And that doesn't often work well. You spend a lifetime in caring and support. We gently nudge families to move to that next point where you start thinking about the plan. How, what, when we are no longer here, what do we want for our child? And I mean, there are situations, of course, where there are multiple children. Maybe there are 3 children, 1 with a disability, 2 not. How do you manage your assets and your estate?
And it also goes down for the individual that's there, and I'm sure there's some listening right now as we speak, an individual who is an adult and wants to take care of his or their future financially. Is this plan good for him or her or them? And again, you can apply this right across the full spectrum of all individuals, no matter how old you are, whether you're just your mom or dad or caregiver and is your child, or you're an adult, and you know there's challenges going forward. How can I put in place some security for my retirement years? And I think it's so important to do that. And I guess what Deanne was saying, while it says down here at the bottom, while financial planning piece is important, there are other considerations.
Right. And so when you're creating a plan, and some guidance is, and I suggest guidance is important piece here. Again, I treat myself, or I talk about myself as being a quarterback and coordinating all these things. But, future planning includes some or all of these things. And again, for every family, for every person, that is different. And it would be certainly kind of strange if it weren't different. Because as humans, as individuals, with a disability or not, we are persons. We are individuals. We have rights. We have freedoms, which have to be respected. And planning, and the first part of planning, we're going to come to in a second, the will is a part of making sure the retention of dignity, the retention of respect, of making sure that provision is put in place to maintain a person's status financially.
And even when you go down to the last one, it's not last, but these are not put in any order of preference or priority. But I think we all at some time in our lives make certain decisions or have to think about certain decisions where we need that personal decision-making assistance. Sometimes there's words called supported decision making, where individuals themselves may not have the ability to make that decision, but with the support of loved ones or friends or support people, they then come to a decision or a conclusion what to do with their lives. And if it happens to be, will I get the RDSP? Well, that's again becomes a personal choice on your part to reach out and say, well, who should I talk to? So maybe I'll go to the next one, Deanne.
Yeah, okay. So again, there's no, the estate plan, big word again, big phrase. There's no specific type of estate plan because they're all different. Number one, I've not been able to duplicate one yet. And because it has to be tailored to specific circumstances. So for someone to come in and say, well, it has to be this, or the other thing, that's just not real and not at all realistic. But there's one common thing I will say, there has to be some sort of plan. And I strongly encourage, while it's important for everyone to have a plan, it's more important when there is a person with a disability in the picture and making sure that provisions are provided going forward. And the next screen will talk about the first thing you do. It's your will. Everyone should have one. And like I say, it cannot be stressed enough. Your will is your opportunity to ensure your wishes are followed when you are no longer here. And that is the basis. Now, Fraser referenced a lady that we spoke to, an advisor who said there wasn't much value in an RDSP. Well, she sent me her will. I'm not a lawyer, by the way. I am not, do not pretend to be, but I have the resources at my fingertips to and expertise available to me to assist persons. She sent her will, and it was approximately a page and a half long. By the time we were finished our discussion, her comment was, and this is not quite true, but her comment was, this is really not worth the paper it was written on, is it? I said, based on what you want and what this document is saying, you're close to being correct. Now, we've gone a long way now in making sure that her concerns about her adult son, who actually lives independently with another person with a disability, but we've gone a long way to make sure that their circumstances, that what she wants and what her husband wishes will be fulfilled. She also had a daughter, and everything was really going to the child with a disability. When we were able to find all this money in the RDSP plan, her comment was, but now I can make provision for my daughter also. Well, absolutely, wonderful. The RDSP is going to create a nice asset base, but now you can do something for your daughter. And that's wonderful. So planning will always create positive consequences, okay? And the failure to plan, while we sometimes think, well, I'm not going to be around, someone will be. And so to not plan, even in the most simple fashion, okay? No one is suggesting that your plans have to be ridiculously elaborate. It depends on what you want. But a plan moves your agenda forward and when you're not here, it really eases the management of a state and management of assets on behalf of a person or persons. So we can go ahead there, Fraser. So, the planning process starts first in thought. And really it's pen and paper and trying to determine what is important. People, our clients who go through this process, without question, come out the other end with a sense of relief. I think that's a rule. And because what we try to encourage is, again, creating the best possible consequences. And it's not going to be perfect. I really haven't seen the perfect scenario because things change. And so, but we try to do the best we can in our planning. And in part of the planning and with the will itself, in the will itself, you'll see that there'll be talk about things a lawyer will bring up with you, all these types of trusts that are floating around out in the environment. Well, the great thing is that all these trusts, while you can create some living trusts, most of these trusts are created through your will, and you'll never really create them yourself. It's your will that does it. So you'll see all these things like Henson Trust, Support Trust, discretionary, non-discretionary, all these types of trusts. You don't have to boggle your mind with that. I mean, it's nice to have some basic understanding, but a trust is just is a suitcase from which a trustee carries out your instructions on behalf of a third person called a beneficiary. So, I mean, your will create these types of things. And I think sometimes people get so focused on, well, I don't understand what a trust means. How do I set up a trust? You don't have to worry about that. Make sure we create the mechanism inside the will to make these things happen in the event of a testamentary trust. That's what most people do, that are only triggered upon up at death. And you know, in Newfoundland we have support trusts. It's good to have some knowledge of that. But the person who is guiding you through that process should be the person that's, working with you to create the best plan without getting bogged down into the legalities sometimes. I mean, yes, it's important to have some knowledge, but I see a lot of people look at this and they turn their back and say, that's just too complicated, and walk away. It doesn't have to be like that. It's all about being having a quarterback and guidance through the process.
And I guess another part of it too, Dion, is, and I know this from listening to many people who have gone through the process and have put in place wills and established trusts for their sons and daughters. And again, as they say, we're all different and we come all with different skill sets. The same will come into play when you go into the law firms. There are lawyers with certain skill sets. It's very important, and I can't stress this enough, to talk to people who have gone through the process. And I know, like Dennis Gill, the president of NLACL, he had to find a special lawyer who understood disabilities. If they don't understand disabilities and they're just treating you as I will take out this template and use it. And I go back to what Dion had to say. This is an individualized, personalized plan that you're putting in place when it comes to the challenges that are there. And those challenges have to be understood of what's best for the individual as we go forward. Even sometimes they say, well, yeah, we'll give them the house. No, don't give them the house, because then you got to pay for all the expenses. Because there are ways, by putting it into a trust that's controlled by, again, trusted people, that there are ways that's more beneficial for your son or daughter because of the challenges going forward. Again, reach out to people who know before you make that major step, and just think that you can dial up XYZ law firm and get this done. That is not how it is. The way it is that you have to shop around to get someone who really does specialize and understands disabilities.
Yeah, and Fraser, I hate to say it, unfortunately, in Newfoundland, there aren't any specialists in this area.
I didn't want to say, but it is true, and I know many of our members went to a particular law firm that does specialize in that. It just happens to be on the mainland, but again, they have the right to be able to practice here in our province and set up what needs to be set up. But again, it's one of those areas that just don't jump in. Really discuss it with your financial advisor. Maybe he will know, or your obviously the Autism Society, they may know, and I know NLACL definitely does know for sure. Those who meet, I guess, the criteria that are needed and the skill sets that are required to achieve what needs to be achieved for your son and daughter, and that what's best for him or her going forward.
Yeah, that's a good point, Fraser. And Dennis Gill has spoken with some of my clients because Dennis has a child with a disability and has gone through this whole process. And He's been more than happy that if someone would like to chat with him. And then there's Ray. I mean, they're willing to share their experience and knowledge in this.
Yes.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is that, every situation is different. Every situation will have varying degrees of complexity, but you're not alone. You're not alone. There's a tremendous group of people out there willing to help and provide guidance. And, I think that's an important point to make. and again, I guess I'm repeating myself here a little bit. I mean, people get overwhelmed with that process. And I want to encourage people to step back a little bit from it. If you started and didn't continue, step back from it. And sometimes that's a wonderful thing to do. And as we just said, Fraser was saying, and as I just said, seek out people who've gone through the process, and we can help with that. Again, don't get stuck in the weeds. The process of the will and all the planning itself, it actually follows very naturally. And what 3 months ago might have seemed very, very complex, in a very short period of time, can be structured the way you want it. Because going back to what you really want for your children or for yourself, there was the list. You want happiness, you want security, I mean, all those things. Well, this process will help achieve that. But I strongly encourage to not get caught up in the intricacies or even trying to understand every piece of the puzzle. It's good to have a good picture, okay? And we want to fill as many pieces in as we can, and we achieve to try to get the best, knowing that we may sometimes fall a little short, but our best efforts, very, very important. So Fraser, next, again, I guess we're here. I mean, we've talked a bit about creating security for persons with a disability, be they an adult or a child. We talked about the RDSP. There's a lot more in that, of course, that we could discuss. And we talked a little bit about wills and trusts. And in simplicity, simply because there aren't rules, because your family situation and your dynamic is different from your neighbors. This was just a general overview to introduce and to remove some of the stigma that we sometimes might feel.
All right, that's great. We're going to open it up to questions. I already have some in the chat, so I'll pose those first, and then I'll open up to anybody to unmute themselves and to pose any questions. So let's go back here. There were some questions around terminology that people aren't typically used to,
right?
Not uncommon. It can be very, very confusing. So the phrase account value at age 60 and lifetime disability assistance payments, what is the difference between the two?
Okay. You want me to take that one, Fraser?
Yes, by all means, please.
Okay. So like any investment, be it tax-free savings account, your savings account, or RSPs, eventually at a certain point in time, you can project forward and say that if I make X contributions at a given rate of return, I should by a certain age achieve a certain dollar amount. I'll make up some numbers. If I put $100 or $1,000 a year away for 20 years, well, I wouldn't have 20,000. I should have made some money on that money, so I'll probably be closer to $42,000. Well, that's your account value. That's what it will have grown to. Now with RDSPs, it's potentially your contributions, bonds, the government grants, and the money you make on money. That would be your account value at age 60. Now, some of you might be saying, why are you saying age 60? All right, there's a reason for that. And believe me, the discussion can go in many directions here, but age 49 is the last year the government will put in bonds or grants. So the rule of thumb is, in order to avoid any penalties or clawbacks, you have 10 years technically that you're not required to wait, but you wait before there would be a penalty, when you can start drawing, from which time you can start drawing income. And so if it's 49, you'd have an account value at 59.60 that you would be able to draw income from without any penalty of clawback of the grants and the bonds. Now, so at age 60, you will have grown an account value. The lifetime disability assistance payments, you'll notice, is a larger number. And there's a formula that the government uses, and I was estimating it around 4.5%. that you take out on an annual basis. So if you have a $200,000 account and you take out $10,000 a year, you still have $190,000 invested, earning 5% rate of return. So over your lifetime, from age 60 to life expectancy, which might be 83, you've taken out income payments for 23 years. If you live to age 90, it'll be 30 years. Okay, so over a lifetime, from the time you start making withdrawals, say at age 60 to life expectancy, that is your lifetime disability, total lifetime disability assistance payments. Did that make sense?
No.
All right.
I'll be the first one to say it. So from my interpretation, and everybody else who's not an accountant can tell me, is that the account value at age 60 is the value of your total investment by age 60.
Yeah.
Right? And that your
Yes.
lifetime disability assistance payments is when you start withdrawing your RDSP,
Yes.
and it is your annual payment.
Yeah.
It's your cumulative annual payments to life expectancy.
Got it. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next one. So can anybody apply or receive the provincial incentive program?
Fraser, you can answer that?
Answer is yes. At the moment that you open your RDSP, that is step number one, and you have an RDSP, you would then ask the financial advisor or the bank, please submit this to the Newfoundland and Labrador Association for Community Living. They will receive that particular, and it's called a PIP, which is the Provincial Incentive Plan, and a check will be cut in the amount of $150 directly into that particular RDSP account. And the way that we know that it's going to that RDSP account, because there's an account number provided by the financial institution or the financial provider or the financial advisor to us. And then, so we would then cut it directly, no questions asked whatsoever.
So the next question is, does a will have to be done through an attorney, or can we write something down ourselves? I think I know the answer to that. You can draft your own will. However, it does have to be commissioned and by a legal representative. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, that's called a holographic will. It's a handwritten will, and it still has to be notarized and witnessed. Probably discouraged to do that.
Highly discouraged. We encourage you to be educated and well prepared when talking about planning wills and estates.
Yeah, I mean, because there are so many intricacies, and you want all those things covered. And so the answer is you can do a written will, a handwritten will. There's no, you can, and it's a legal document, but it is challengeable. And you want to try to avoid that if possible.
Yeah. So next one from Diane. We were always getting the disability tax credit until 2016, at which time the government deemed our son not to be disabled enough. I can tell you, Diane, I do have a contact with CRA that we can kind of chat with, but I also know when it comes specifically to ASD, that would fall under a different category within the disability tax application. So they have expanded that to include, I believe it's called mental competency, where a psychologist or a psychiatrist or anybody in that is trained to assess that can comment on to the mental implications or the psychological implications that having a diagnosis would have on an individual. But if you want, we can certainly chat a little bit more about that, but I can certainly pass along her contact to you.
Just a little note on that, Ashley. I sent out to a lady in the same kind of situation up in Nain, of all places. She was having a challenge trying to get the disability tax credit, and her practitioner, whether it was a nurse or doctor, psychologist, psychiatrist at the time, would fill in that particular form. I sent her along actual guides for doctors, guide for psychiatrist, guide for nurse. That's already been developed in being able to write the narrative that's required to have CRA approve in a lot of cases. And so again, those items are available, and I'll be more than happy to share them with you, and you can share them with your members by all means also.
And we did do a presentation, so that presentation was recorded and is available on our social media pages, and that has Anne Marie's contact information there as well. So you might get some answers from that one. Another question that we did have was whether or not a financial planner receives a commission for RDSPs.
Okay, good question. So in my practice, probably every practice is different. So you know, we help people. You talked about the disability tax credit. We help people do those applications. I've delivered them to the doctors. I've picked them up from the doctor's offices. We handle all that. And a lot of people who have been declined, we generally have decent success in getting the approval back on again. So that's something that we offer and do. We don't charge any fees for the services that we provide. So we'll never say to a client, for us to do this for you, it's going to cost X amount of money. That conversation will never, ever happen. In terms of the commission on the RDSP, there will, again, advisors will treat things differently. So in our practice, there are no upfront fees or upfront commissions paid by our clients. We get paid in my firm as a part of the trailer fee from the management fee that is charged on any of the investments that we manage. So we get a small amount of the trailer fee, and that's how we support what we do.
So what's a trailer fee?
Okay, so
in
there are
simple
a couple
terms.
of ways in what's that?
In simple terms.
In simple terms, a trailer fee is a residual that the company that we do business with, and we use McKinsey Financial primarily, okay? They were the only company that volunteered to offer RDSPs in Canada. All the banks and credit unions were mandated to do it, okay? So as an advisor, when I set up an RDSP, I primarily use McKinsey Financial. So I will design an investment portfolio that we hope will work for the client. All those investment portfolios have a management fee associated with them that is associated with the fund itself. Okay, whether it's 1%, 1.5%, whatever that number is, then the McKinsey pays me 0.5, and I'll tell you what it is right up front, approximately 0.5% to manage the portfolio on behalf of our client.
Okay.
All right.
Next one. Who can open an RDSP if a child with a disability have divorced parents? Who can open the RDSP? Is it the parent with the lower net income, or do they only look at the person's net income for grants and bonds?
Okay, so if we're talking about a situation where there's family breakdown and there's been a divorce in place, usually we work with the primary caregiver, generally the person receiving the child tax credit. So that would probably be the holder of the account. And up until the child turns age 18, the access to the bonds and grants are based on, if it's the mom or dad, it's based on their net income.
Right, so it's the net income of the primary caregiver.
Of the holder of the account, which say would be the primary caregiver. From 19 on, it's the beneficiary, which is the child.
Right, okay. Hopefully that answered your question, Melissa. Next one, how often must applicable paperwork be resubmitted to ensure the criteria continues to be met?
Are you referring to the disability tax credit there, Ashley?
No, I think she's referring to RDSPs.
Once the RDSP is set up, there's no ongoing maintenance required.
Right.
The only issue that we watch for is if a person loses the disability tax credit.
Right.
Rules have recently changed on that to make it better, but yeah.
Yeah, so the rules on disability tax have changed a little bit. In some situations, you have to renew your disability tax credit. In others, you don't. And I have found that it has been different for every other person that I talk to. So next question, it's about withdrawals from RDSPs. Can a withdrawal be made before the age of 60 for any reason? And what happens if the beneficiary dies before the age of 60?
Okay, so let's work with the last one first. In the event that a beneficiary passes away at any time, okay, it could be before you start taking withdrawals or after. The bonds and grants that are less than 10 years in the plan go back to the federal government. The contributions, growth, and bonds and grants over 10 years old are paid out to the beneficiary's estate. Now, so there is also good reason for that reason that beneficiaries may also consider having a will, because there could be considerable assets there that at death they would like to have some control over. So most everything flows to the estate apart from the grants and the bonds.
Okay. And can you withdraw before
part.
the age? Yeah.
So yes, so taking income. Well, if you take income within 10 years of the last government bonds and grants being deposited, if you take money out, the government's going to claw back some of the bonds and grants. Now, I'll have situations where the last bonds and grants go in at age, say, 40. Well, in that event, the client can begin making withdrawals at age 50 without any concern about clawback. Right. So you always have to look at when did the last government bonds or grants go into the account. But is there access to the funds? Yes, there is access to the funds.
There's access to the funds. So if I understand this correctly, it's almost like there's a maturity and you don't have the risk of getting any clawback if you let it sit for at least 10 years.
Correct.
Okay.
It's a 10-year rule.
That's right. Yes.
And
they are reviewing that 10-year rule as we speak.
Okay. What's the earliest age that a parent can open a RDSP for a child?
As soon as they are a recipient of the disability tax credit. And that is the key. So it could be a 6-month-old, it could be a year. I mean, so there's really no rule there.
In that situation, this is one of my own questions now that we're talking about this. In that situation, I know when we're talking about disability tax credit, the child has been diagnosed, but it has taken several years to get approval. They do retro, so they will retro back to a certain number of years. Is that similar situation with RDSPs?
Well, we'll go back, so if the child was 5 and it goes back to, say, age 2.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with the RDSP, if there were any bonds and grants available, they'll go back to when the disability tax credit was first established.
Perfect. Okay.
But we'll go back as much as 10 years.
All right. Good. Okay. So Charlotte just said, just not understanding the will and trust language. A parent can control how the benefits are used after their death or after the death of the individual?
No, after their death. And that's really what you want, is to make sure that your wishes at your death are properly explained through a will document for the assets to be managed on behalf of the beneficiary, which is, let's say, a child.
Yes.
So the will is your expression, all the things you want your assets to do for your disabled child.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Hopefully that kind of clarifies.
Well, I mean,
it's complicated and it's unique to every situation, and I
It is, but it's your means to express what you want to have happen.
Yes, and that's particularly important if you have guardianship of an individual or if your child or dependent lacks cognitive capacity.
Absolutely correct.
So that may be completely necessary.
Yes.
Oops, somebody got bumped out. So Galaxy Tab E, whoever that is. My son is 21 years old. He was diagnosed with autism at age 8. He's receiving monthly disability support payments. Would he receive grants or bonds going back 10 years? And based on his low income, would he have received a 3-to-1 investment?
Okay. So how old is this person?
He's 21,
21?
right?
Right. So right now, everything would be based on his or her income. So if they're low income, all the bonds and grants would be based on that. They would receive full access and they would get the 3-to-1 grant. Absolutely.
Right. So just
go back, and we'll go back years.
Yeah. So they'll go back years. Like he was diagnosed at 8, they'll go back 10 years.
They'll go back up to 10 years. So up to at age 19, it's based on the individual's income.
Yes.
Prior to 19, it's based on the family income. So CRA will actually do the adjudication themselves. There's a little box to tick on the DTC, Disability Tax Credit Application, which gives CRA permission to go back and adjudicate going back 10 years.
Yeah.
So even if the family income fell into a category that allowed for bonds or grants to be paid, you can pick it up going back 10 years.
Right. And to clarify, once your child reaches the age of majority, the disability tax credit changes because they are now an adult.
That's correct.
And you may need to reapply at that point in time.
Not necessarily reapply.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of temporary disability tax credits in our province, okay, that are always under reassessment. But it's not necessarily based on, say, age 18, 19. But it could coincide with that, certainly.
Are there any restrictions to get a bond?
Yeah, I mean, the restriction is income, okay? So you have to always differentiate between less than age 19 and over age 19. Over age 19 is based on the person with the disability, their income. Prior to 19 is based on net family income. So if the net family income is less than 31,000, so this is designed for low income primarily. If it's under 31,000, you'll get the full $1,000 bond per year. If it's between 31 and 48,000, you get partial. But at age 19, then based on the person with the disability and their specific income.
Okay. And I do have that broken down in a chart because I did give a presentation on RDSPs, but you guys are the experts.
Well, there's all questions and you learn more every day.
Yeah, and it's I can only fit so much information in this nugget of mine. Is there a helpful checklist for parents to see what to do and also when to do things?
There are all kinds of tools out there, and yes, and we can supply those for anyone who would like to have such a checklist. In terms of time, now, once you start putting your thoughts together, you start formulating a plan and move towards getting a will in place. So sooner, better. You can always reevaluate. But if something dramatic and terrible happens, you may never get the chance to express your wishes. So earlier is always better, and reevaluate periodically every 5 years, every 7 years, whatever is comfortable.
Perfect. And Charlotte had asked about possible lawyers familiar with wills and trusts, but I will let you figure that out. We don't endorse anybody in particular, but I'm sure, you know, we can help you kind of navigate through that, Charlotte. Does anybody else have any questions? I'm just going to open it up to the floor now. You guys can unmute yourself if you deem fit.
Now, one little item there you just asked about, is there a guide? And I can share the screen if you'd like. There is a 10-step guide that we do have, and here, I'll just share it just so you can see it. Where is that one? Let's see. Can you see that there?
Yep.
So, I mean, there's your steps. You got to have the social insurance number, the disability tax credit, file your income tax returns, choose your financial institution, choose your holder, open the RDSP, invest your money, update your will, protect yourself, and then it's the road ahead. So it's 10 steps, but it's all what went on here tonight, basically, is if you follow through the presentation and you tick off each one of those, you got yourself a plan. So I'll stop sharing it again now, and at least just an idea.
Yeah,
There
if
we
we could, maybe Fraser, if you can share that with me, I can
Yes,
distribute it to the people who are on the call.
Yes, I'll be more than happy.
Any other questions from you guys? Now is a great time to get some of those questions answered. You're welcome, Tracy. I'm glad it was helpful. And listen, you guys are parents. We want to hear from you, and I can speak for ASNL here. I want to hear about things that you want to know. If there's something or a particular topic that you're curious about that you don't have enough information about, please let me know. Pop me an email, you know, message us on Facebook, let us know so that we can meet the need of what you guys want to learn about or know about.
And it's so important, and I can't stress it, and like Dion has always said, I keep hitting my head against this RDSP and the importance of getting it, even if you have no money. It's vital that you open it and proceed from there with the great plan that hopefully you'd have for your son or your daughter or yourself in trying to at least make those first steps. And I'll back it right back to Chris, the gentleman out in Bay Vert. Never knew a thing about it. His aunt, who worked at the bank for 35 years, didn't know anything about this particular program. He will receive approximately $60,000 only because he came to that session. Now I know friends of his and friends of his friends that have disabilities that he's telling people about. And that's all I'm asking from the group that's here tonight. Share what we've heard. Say you should look this up, find that out. And it's such a financial reward for you to take away some of those burdens that and challenges that will be there as you get older, and to have a good plan in place and a bit of a retirement. And if you can put money into it, you can definitely see the rewards that are there as a plan that's not like anybody else's. We have a Cadillac of a plan here in Canada, and we should take advantage of it. So that's my 10 cents worth.
Yeah, and you know, just I guess we're finishing off here, and I appreciate. I see some comments coming across the bottom of the screen there, and you know, and thank you for those comments, and I appreciate it. I mean, we're working very hard to try to create awareness of the program, and if anyone would like, you know, again to reach out, my information was on one of the screens there, and we're happy to chat with you at any time.
We have one more question. If a parent can no longer contribute to their child's, I guess, adult child's fund, will she still reap the benefit?
Well, I mean, again, contributions are not compulsory. So if there's been investments going into the plan, and if bonds have been going into the plan and grants for a while, as long as contributions were being made, the plan keeps on growing. The plan stays invested. And no, absolutely, there's no risk. The plan doesn't collapse.
Right. So if contribution stops for whatever reason, say the parent dies or the contributor dies, the beneficiary still receives
Absolutely.
RDSP.
Yes, it keeps on
Absolutely
going.
correct. Keeps going.
Yeah. It's a
Perfect.
plan that, again, I'll say it here in the closing, that I have to say to you, Ashley, and to all the members of your organization for taking such a leadership role in promoting a program that so few people know about, but it's because of activities like this that we share with our membership how important the program is. It's accessible, and it will solve many financial challenges as we move forward into your retirement. And again, I can't stress that enough. The more you expound it, the more you promote it, the more you put out there, and we all share together, we will have a very successful disability community in our province when it comes to the finances as you go down in the years moving ahead. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you.
And to answer Beverly's question, I will be sending the recording out to those who registered. So you guys have a copy of it. Can you change financial advisors if you're already set up with one? Maybe you're not liking their
Yeah.
vibe.
I mean, it's about relationships, right? And finding advisors who can support your objectives. I hate to say it, but for our firm, it's a benefit. We do bring in a lot of clients that have started their RDSPs in other institutions, but are not getting necessarily what they're looking for. I want to be careful how I phrase that, of course. I mean, we try our best, but you know, and it's helping us grow and helping us carve out a piece of our operation to do this type of work. Because I'd like to just make a suggestion that many advisors are not doing this, or many of the larger financial institutions, because it requires quite a commitment in terms of time and knowledge. It's hardly a profit center, but for me personally, it's something that I relish doing, and I enjoy it every conversation I have. But we're making it part of our agenda to be better at this.
I think it's also some of the advice that I said earlier pertaining to, we have lawyers, we have advisors. How skilled is the lawyer in disability law and putting in place the right structure based on his or her knowledge? If that person doesn't have those skill sets, I have to make my changes.
So I have a couple more questions. Charlotte wants to know, why did my financial institution not tell me about PIP? And I'm going to say it's probably because I didn't know.
You're right.
Again, yes, uninformed. And I mean, it's like, we did a presentation up in St. Anthony. I ran into the bank manager of the bank, and I asked him about RDSPs and stuff. And he never knew one thing about, oh, that's handled by our 1-800 number.
Yeah.
And
that's not good enough.
No, it's not. If you haven't got an advisor that knows, again, I think it's right now, if you do have an RDSP, whenever you may have opened it, by all means apply for the PIP, because the chances are you'll be able to get it.
That's right.
Okay. So
another question, would it be more beneficial to wait until adulthood to start the RDSP if you know the recipient will be low income, but the family isn't?
If the means exist, I think for any investment strategy, starting early is better because you don't lose anything. If you start early enough and you have the financial means, the worst case scenario is you get a 1-to-1 grant. You put in $1, the government will put in $1. So the earlier you can start that program on behalf of your child, you want to do that. Now, obviously, when they become an adult, they're going to reap more benefits from it, but you would have gotten a really nice head start. So if the financial means is there, get started early.
Question that I'm glad you're asking questions. I'm going to ask a question also now because you prompted me. If in essence during the person's lifetime, so you started early, will he at some point or she get the full $20,000? And if you put in the maximum, will he or she during the lifetime get the 90,000 total?
Yeah, we have a lot of many situations that are going to parents are going to run out of that bond and grant room by the time the person is in their mid-30s.
And now I'm glad you answered that question, because the importance here is, again, remember, Ashley, we said, once you wait your 10-year period, you can then start drawing down that, either put it into whatever investment you may want at that particular time. So
here's my question to that.
Go.
Because I'm not as well versed. My question is that if a parent opens an RDSP for a child, and obviously when they're under the age of 18, you're taking into consideration the family net income, right? So they may not qualify for the grant or bond.
No, they'll always qualify for grant.
For the grant, okay, for the bond, they may not qualify. Once that child turns 19 and is an independent and has a low family income, can they then get the bond?
They will start getting the bond at that point in time.
Okay.
Based on their own income.
Right.
So you don't lose anything.
Okay.
And you got 20 years then to build up that, get all those 20,000 in bonds. And if you started earlier getting those grants, now you got a nice head start. And now you can start picking up as much of that 70,000 as you can get. It's $90,000 of free money.
Mm-hmm.
The federal government up there has buckets of money with your names on it. Just have to access it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's an important piece. One thing I want to mention before, just in case, and I know you're not endorsing or anything like that, but I have to tell you what our practice is, okay? Because it is different. And Ray McKaysey keeps pushing this. Dion, you got to keep talking about this. And actually, I don't know if you know Ray or not, but I keep bringing his name up. He's a mentor to me, okay? And I love the guy dearly. He says, Dion, keep telling the commitment that you made, that you will go to any home where they're comfortable, anywhere in the province, and sit down with a mom and dad or mom or dad to talk about their disability, RDSPs. And I got to state that commitment, because that is a game changer, because not everyone is comfortable going into a bank, okay? Or being given a 1-800 number to call, right? And so I have to speak to that, because that is a value piece that we are offering, and we don't charge anything for it. We don't charge a penny for any of the services that we provide, apart from that trailer fee that we receive to manage your portfolio. Okay, that's what keeps the lights on.
So again, ASNL doesn't endorse anybody. We want you guys to have the information so that you can make a qualified, educated decision when it comes to the future and financial planning of the future.
Because I can't do them all, Ashley.
No, you can't. You can't.
I can't do them all. There's 7,500 people out there that need this, and I don't have the resources. I got 4 full-time staff people and myself, and we're going full at it. But we don't have enough. So I encourage advisors out there to get involved in this. They're just right now not doing it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Tanya just asked a question about what was the provincial incentive program mentioned additionally. I assume she probably missed that. So that is the provincial incentive program that NLACL has with government. And it's $150 that they will then directly deposit into a opened RDSP.
And the good part, we always remember, is that the federal government will put in 350 automatically.
450.
Even better.
It's
See, I
getting
got
late,
gray.
Fraser.
Yeah, I know, and I got gray hair.
Mhm.
So again, that 150 becomes $600 in your account. So,
Mhm.
Unbelievable.
and we have the money sitting there in an account, just like the federal government got money in their federal account, waiting for you to open up the RDSP. We have the money sitting there in an account for another 1,000 people,
Mhm.
and we're just
That's
waiting.
right. That's right.
All
So-
right, that seems to be all the questions, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. We really appreciate it. If there are any follow-up questions, we'll include all the contact information in a follow-up email.
Thank you so much,
Lovely.
Ashley.
Sound
Thank
good?
you.
You're a
Bye-bye,
wonderful
everybody.
host, and you're very knowledgeable.
Thank you. Thank you. Tell my
Have a
boss
nice
that,
evening.
will you? He's down there somewhere.
Oh, well, if he's down there, Paul, you got yourself a great person there.
Yeah, absolutely right.
I'm gonna tell him
Fantastic
that.
leadership.
Yeah,
he might
absolutely.
have left now that I said that.
He did. No, he's still there.
Oh, okay, good.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
And please,
Okay.
parents, if you have something you want to know about, let us know.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
you.
Ashley.
Bye-bye.
You're
Good night.
welcome. Bye.
Bye.